Hi, so today we are going to be talking about how to add and subtract fractions with like denominators and unlike denominators. Well, first we're going to talk about how to add or subtract with like denominators. So looking at my problem, this first one here, I have 3/12 and I need to add 2/12 to that. So this should be a review over what they learned last year in 4th grade. So when I'm adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, I am going to add or subtract the top, but the denominator stays the same. So I'm just going to bring that denominator over to my answer. So I'm going to use this model to help me illustrate how to add 3/12 plus 2/12. So I'm going to take one color and I'm going to shade in 3 of these 12 boxes. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to take a second color and I'm going to shade in my second add-end. So I have 3/12. Now I'm going to add 2/12 to that. So when I add 3/12 plus 2/12, I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 12ths shaded in. So my sum is 5/12. Now when I am subtracting fractions, I find it easier when I'm using a model. I'm going to use a lighter color first. I am going to illustrate using the model my first fraction. So I have 5/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to take a darker color and I'm going to take away 3 of those boxes. 1, 2, 3. Now however many boxes are still shaded in without an X in them is going to be my difference. So I have 2 boxes that are shaded in of the 8s. So 5/8 minus 3/8 equals 2/8. Now I could do the same using fraction tiles, and I can have 5/8 sitting there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can take away 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm left with 2. So either way you want to think about it, it works. Okay, so let's talk about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Now this looks like a lot, but it's not too overwhelming. It shouldn't be too overwhelming. So when I'm adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, I want to first look at the fractions themselves. So I have 1/2 plus 1/3. So I'm going to use this model and I'm going to shade in 1/2. And on my second model, I'm going to shade in 1/3. Now when I'm adding and subtracting fractions, I cannot add or subtract fractional pieces that are not the same size. I can't add this half to this third equally. They have to have the same size piece. So what I want to do is I want to take my 2 denominators and I want to list my LCM. And we talked about this in class. I need to find my least, I need to list my multiples to find my least common multiple. So I'm going to look at 2 and 3. And I want to list the first 5 multiples of both of those numbers to help me find one that they have in common. So I'm going to start with 2. And I'm just doing like 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, that kind of thing. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for 3. So basically just skip counting by 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. All right, I'm going to look at my list now, and I'm going to find the lowest number that they both have in common. And I can see that that number is 6. So 6 is going to be my common denominator. So I want to take my two models and I want to break those into pieces so that they're equal in both grids. So I want to take this and break them into 6 equal pieces. So I'm just going to take this half and I'm going to draw 2 lines going across to make it into 6 pieces. And I'm going to take my thirds and draw 1 line going down to bring it into 6 pieces. Well, now I have to figure out how many of those pieces I can color in or shade in. Now, one way I can do that is I can look at my first model and I can make the same amount or the same size piece that's shaded in. So on this side, this whole half is shaded in, so I can shade in that same piece so it looks the same. And on this one, I have this top row all shaded in, so I can shade in that top row over here. The other way I can do it is I can look at my fractions. I know I need to have a common denominator of 6, so I'm going to go ahead and write my denominators over here that I need to change it into. I want to look at my first number, 1/2, and I need to take this half and change it into a 1/6. So I need to look, what can I do to this 2 to change it to 6? 2 times what equals 6? I can multiply that 2 times 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. Now whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. I have to make it fair. So 1 times 3 is 3. I gave an example in class that if I have 2 friends and I only give one of them money, but I don't give the other one money, it's not fair. I have to do the same thing for both. All right, so looking at this 1/3, in order to change that 3 to a 6, I can multiply it times 2. So 3 times 2 is 6. But I need to do the same for the top. So 1 times 2 is 2. So I can look at my model just to check. I have 1, 2, 3 out of 6 shaded in, and 1, 2 out of 6 shaded in. Now that I have the same size pieces in both of my models and on both of my fractions, I can add or subtract just like normal, as if it was the same as adding or subtracting like denominators. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces are shaded in. 1, 2, 3 plus 2 is 5, and I leave my denominator the same, which is 6. So my final answer is 5/6. So now let's look at adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Now we talked about in class that a mixed number is a number that has a whole number and a fraction together. So I'm looking at these and I see 4 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/6. So when I'm adding and subtracting mixed numbers, first I need to add or subtract the fractions. So I can look and I have 5/6 minus 1/6. Well, when I do that, 5/6 minus 1/6, my denominator is going to stay the same. I look at my numerators. 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, now I need to add or subtract the whole numbers. So I'm going to add or subtract the whole numbers. This one I'm subtracting. I have 4 minus 2. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So my answer in 4 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/6 is 2 and 4/6. But I'm not done. I have to simplify my answer. I have to take my fraction and reduce it down to the simplest form where the factors of both my numerator and denominator, the only one they have in common is 1. So I'm going to look and see what can I divide into both my numerator and denominator that will go in evenly for both of them. Well, I can tell that 4 and 6 are both even numbers, so I know I can at least divide both by 2. So if I divide 4 by 2 and 6 by 2. I get 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my final answer is 2 2/3. That is my answer in its simplest form. All right, so when we're adding and subtracting mixed numbers that have unlike denominators, I still follow the same process, but I have to add a couple extra steps in there. So first, I'm going to find my least common multiple. So I look at my fractions. I have 4 and I have 3. So I need to find my least common multiple of 4 and 3. So I'm going to list my multiples of 4. I'm just skip counting by 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. I just have to list 5. If I need more, I can always do more. But for right now, I just want 5. I'm going to skip count by 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Okay, looking at this list, I can see that the least common multiple, the multiple that they have in common that is the lowest number, is going to be my 12. So I need to take these fractions and I need to rename them so that they have denominators of 12. So I can change this to 5 with the fraction of 12 plus 10 with something over 12. So what do I need to do to that 4 to change it to 12ths? 4 times what equals 12? Well, I know 4 times 3 equals 12. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to make it fair and do it to the top. So 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/4 is also equal to 3/12. It's an equivalent fraction for 3/12. Okay, I know I need to multiply 3 times 4 to get it to 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 2 times 4 is 8. So 2/3 is an equivalent fraction of 8/12. Now that my fractions have the same denominator, I can add my fractions together. So I'm going to actually move this answer to here because I ran out of room. So 3/12 plus 8/12. My denominator is going to stay the same. 3 plus 8 is 11. Okay, my fourth step is to add my whole numbers. So 5 plus 10 is 15. So my answer is 15 11/12. Now looking at this fraction, it is as simplified as it's going to be able to get. There's not any numbers that can divide evenly into both 11 and 12. So this is my final answer.